you've brought an interesting instrument just here at Didgeridoo.
You should know about that one, shouldn't you?
Yeah, well, I lived in Australia for a long time. I still don't know how to play one, but you were there in New Zealand at Opt 1, Dave and Dale Garrett's
That's right.
Scripture and Song event, where we were both there, and we saw all the different islanders and people groups bringing their instruments to worship God. And I remember a Hawaiian bringing a nose flute, and he stuck this nose flute in his nose, and he's blowing out, and and this sound came out, and the spirit started to move, and when the Aboriginals started playing, filled with the Spirit of God and the wind of their spirit going down that piece of wood, and the atmosphere changed, just like when you worship in church. And I remember God saying to me at that time, there's no difference between that single piece of wood being the didgeridoo and the trumpets in the book of Numbers, which were beaten out of a single piece of silver, but it's the spirit of the man blowing down at or the woman blowing down at that makes the difference. And you were really touched during that event, weren't you, as well?
I did. For a long time before that event, this whole idea of nations, cultures and music, I've been thinking about how that fitted in, and I've wanted to help in that area, and I've been so privileged to be able to travel to many of these countries and actually experience firsthand those sort of things. I think that was the first event I'd been to where different countries and origin groups had come together and under the same banner, and that was a unique experience for me, and it really encouraged me even more.
Martin, are you finding that the use of these indigenous instruments are in the context of worship that comes out of that culture? Or are we talking about something that is crossover here into what we would call our worship culture?
Yeah, I think there's two sorts that seem to be happening. One is the cross-fertilisation, where you're getting one country's music and another country, which is very much more Western, and then you get original folk music. I would love to see more original folk music, but we're not getting very much of that because obviously there's fewer people that are involved in those smaller groups rather than English-speaking people, for instance. But I do believe cross-fertilisation is very important, because when you have got small groups, they will die out eventually. So in order to keep some of that going, it needs to be fertilised or cross-fertilised with a group that's more likely to stay on. And my whole idea is, I really believe it's when you start seeing expressions of worship from other people groups, then what happens is we start understanding God in a new way, because we see God in a whole new way. When I was in Albania, I had an incredible experience where I was in a church, just visiting a church, and the church had been actually run by a pastor from America who was a really fantastic guy, and he was trying to bring some of these things we're talking about into happening. But what was happening was mainly it was English songs changed into Albanian. Right, but suddenly in this service, they started singing a song which just changed the whole spirit and atmosphere of the place we were in. And I turned to my interpreter and said, well, what is this song? You know, there's something different about this song. And she proceeded to explain to me that this was an old Albanian folk song where the Albanians had been gone to Italy, exiled over there because the Turks had moved in. And then they were singing back to their country, singing back, we will come back to you. And what had happened is the Christians had changed it, that we will come back to God.
And the Lord brought back the captives to Zion. We were like those that dreamed.